guys, welcome back. My name is Jess if you're new here, and in today's video I want to just share with you my experience from my first year joining Classical Conversations. And I have a daughter who was 4 when she joined. Now she's 5 years old. I also have a son who is 3, and I have one on the way coming this September 2019. So I just wanted to give a little bit about my experience. I'm not going to go into detail about what Classical Conversations is because there are a lot of great videos out there just recently actually that have been made by some wonderful people who I think do a really good job at it. So why reinvent the wheel and make another video about it? So if you have questions on what the actual what Classical Conversations actually is, you know, all the details and questions and answers, I'll leave links below in the description box of wonderful resources that I have found on YouTube that have been made really recently by women who are also part of Classical Conversations. As I mentioned in my last video where I talked about my year-end review about the things that I felt like we did really well in, Classical Conversations was one of those things that I felt like really enriched our school life and our life in general, and so that's why I wanted to go into a little bit more detail about what those things were. So the layout of this video, I do want it to have kind of structure. So first I'm going to let you know a little bit more about myself and my background and where I'm coming from, and also favorite things that I saw rise up and grow in my daughter because of Classical Conversations, and also things in myself that I felt were very beneficial from Classical Conversations. And then at the very end, I'm just going to address things that I feel like I wish I would have known before I joined. And I also have a whole other video that I'm planning on making about how I'm going to structure my 2019 and 2020 curriculum and school year based around the Classical Conversations next year. Okay, so a little bit about myself. I am 30 years old and I was homeschooled most of my life. I went to a private school and also a charter school. All the way up into 5th grade, I kind of was in and out. I'm trying different schools. I'm the oldest child, and so my mom was just trying out this thing called motherhood and trying to figure out what she wanted to do. After 5th grade onward, I was the whole time homeschooled, and I went and I joined a lot of different homeschool groups like co-ops. I just love being homeschooled. I had the option to go to high school, but I really wanted to stay homeschooled, and I actually was able to start community college early at a young age. So by the time I graduated high school, I had an associate's degree through the community college. So with the knowledge of and the wonderful experience of homeschooling that I had growing up, I had always dreamed of being able to do that with my kids, and I actually met and fell in love with a man who was also homeschooled most of his life, although it's a little bit different. He was homeschooled all the way up until his sophomore year of high school, and then he went to a public high school. And so coming out of that, he really wanted to have his kids not go to high school. My husband and I were both homeschooled. We both had great experiences with it, and so we wanted to try this homeschool thing out with our kids. So about this time last year, I started thinking about my daughter who was 4, and she seemed to really be wanting to do a little bit more school than just a typical preschooler. After praying and considering and watching reviews on YouTube, which there weren't a lot actually just a year ago, and there were kind of some mixed feelings about it, but I decided to try it out after my research of what I saw. Because I was looking for a community of like-minded people and people that would help me to kind of encourage me and spur me on in homeschooling. So I was looking for women who kind of held themselves in a godly way, you know, and you never really know what the community that you're going to be involved in is going to be like, but from what I understood of the material of what's being taught in Classical Conversations, I had an idea of the people who would say, yes, I want to buy into that and invest in their life in that. So I had an idea that they might be kind of like-minded people. And so that was really big for me. I didn't want to join a group that was, you know, homeschool, but pretty much just, you know, really relaxed and kind of worldly and stuff. I wanted to invest in something that was going to be of good character and also great for academically. As I mentioned before, I was looking for inspiration and motivation because I know in myself that I can kind of get lazy and or overwhelmed and therefore lazy. So I was looking for something that would meet weekly and then something that I would almost like say, oh, I don't want to miss this because I'm already invested in it and because I paid for this group. Sorry if my eyes are watering or if I sound congested, because I am. So that was another thing that drew me to Classical Conversations. I'm going to call it CC from now on because Classical Conversations, my tongue gets tied saying that. So that was the big draws for me. A big draw to even join a community in general was really for my daughter to make friends. So therefore I needed the community to meet on a weekly basis and also to have a time where the class was always together and maybe even like lunchtime or something like that where community was really emphasized and it wasn't just like go to class, drop in on certain classes and then go, you know. So that was something I really wanted for my kids, was for friendship, for learning from a different teacher. I really wanted her to kind of start learning respect for people older than her and in new environments. And I wanted her to meet friends, and then also I wanted her to learn things that I may not naturally teach her. Okay, so for instance, history. I'm not a big history buff, and I know that was going to be something that I might have struggled with and may struggle with in the future with teaching, because I never really got excited about history in my school years. And I knew that history is a big emphasis in Classical Conversations, the timeline and the history songs and just learning about the classics and learning all about that. And so that was something that I felt kind of weak in, as you know, just what's in my own brain, what I felt like I could teach, and not like I need to have a whole lot of history knowledge right now for my 5-year-old. But you know what I mean, like something that was going to give a good track on the history road and make it enjoyable, not just boring and whatnot. So that was something. Also, science experiments and art I knew was going to be part of this. Oh, and presentations. Every week I knew that it was going to be expected that my daughter would go up in front of her little class and give a 3-minute little speech and learn how it's okay to speak in front of people and how to present herself and how to just formulate thoughts to be able to present to her peers. So I thought that was a really neat thing, something that I would not be able to offer from my own home. We could do oral presentations, but it would just be her 3-year-old brother and me, you know? So yeah. And the last thing that I wanted to kind of invest into, the reason I'm using the word invest is because it does cost some good chunk of change. It's not just like a free co-op, but it is something that was established. It's actually a organization, and it's actually a global organization. Most of it is in the US, and it's something that has been proven, you know, it's 20 years or more older, so that kind of worked out the kinks and things. And actually, as we joined, it was a new edition of the book and different things. So I really liked that. Okay, so for my favorite child growth building aspects of CC are the way she would present and how comfortable she got in front of her class, how she knew she would get up and say, hello, my name is Brooklyn, and today I want to share with you, and to, you know, hear a 4-year-old speak like that, and then at the very end know she's done, and then she says, does anyone have any questions? And then she would say, you know, yes, Carter, what's your question? And so kind of neat seeing that development in her, seeing the boldness, because the first week I think I had to kind of stay kind of near her, and most of the kids did, and needed their mom next to them. But then after a while they got really comfortable, and just kind of neat to see that. Another thing that I saw my daughter responded really well to was being able to sit under a different teacher other than myself and sit at a desk and sit with her other peers her age, but actually learn how to have self-control and not just mess around with her friends and listen to the teacher, because there is a whole 30 minutes where you really need to just be sitting or standing or dancing, whatever the tutor is saying to do, but you still need to be obedient and you need to kind of follow the leader of what the tutor is saying. And so it was really great for her to be in that environment. And as I mentioned before, it really did work well for the whole 24 weeks that she was able to experience science experiments and art, different, even a music, like we had tin whistle that you had to learn, and different just music talk and different paintings, different artists. She got to paint with, make, paint out of chalk and egg yolk and just cool things like that I may not do on my own. I have a certain type of artisticness to me, but not necessarily the messy stuff. And I also, because I'm new to homeschooling, I may not have all these ideas in my arsenal of cool homeschool activities. Yeah, it was really neat to have her be able to have a lot of wow moments in class as she was discovering new things. And I really am thankful that we joined a community where there were like-minded people and people who were raising their kids kind of right alongside the way I was raising my kids. I mean, we're all different. We all have our different flavors, all of our different ways that we are raising our children, but it was very like-minded, and so therefore she was able to make some really great friends. She calls some of them her best friends, which is really sweet, so I'm really glad that she was able to develop those relationships organically. It's kind of really, again, a neat thing to have in a safe place to make friends where you could hear the conversations that they're having and be able to develop deeper relationships outside of CC. So honestly, when I think about the favorite things, they're not a lot about the actual classical conversations curriculum. It's not a lot about the new grammar is what they call it. That wasn't necessarily my favorite thing for my 4 or 5-year-old, because it is a lot of deep things, a lot of things that they're just memorizing. And memorizing is great. And that's another thing where I was really weak at, and I currently am pretty weak at memorizing. And so I love that she's able to develop this strength in memory. But it's not something that I feel like, at least this past year, for her first year in foundations, it's not my favorite part about CC, but it is a really nice bonus. It wasn't something that I based my curriculum on for homeschooling or anything like that, so I don't feel like I have to say anything more. I mean, it's okay that the actual book that we follow and all the new grammar, I feel like it's okay that wasn't my favorite part for my daughter. As years go by and years to come, when we stay in this group, I think that will be something that's really awesome. But as for a 4 and 5-year-old, I personally just don't think it was something that was like the highlight of CC, or something that Brooklyn would say, that was my favorite part, was learning compound prepositions. I know she really enjoys it, but she's not saying that she misses memorizing things, you know what I mean? But it is fun, as I saw the older kids do enjoy and take pride in memorizing their curriculum. And I say curriculum loosely because it's a guide, it's a foundations guide, is what we were given, and I can show that in another video that I plan on making about how I plan on using the foundations guide to form and help guide my curriculum that I'm using for the next school year. Okay, so now for me, my favorite parts that I took away from CC were the friendships. Before I joined and I went to their kind of get to know CC, I didn't go to a community day, which I highly recommend, but I went to a park meeting and I got to know some of the women, and I just felt like these are my kind of people, like I don't really know you, but I just had a really good feeling about them. And I saw the way their kids respected them, but I also saw how fun and weird their kids, not weird like in a bad way, but just how fun their kids were. And so, yeah, I just really found the more I went, the more we stayed for lunch and really got to know the women in our community and the men in the community. There were some dads that were there too. We just made some really great friendships. So I'm really thankful that I had the opportunity to be in a group where women were coming alongside of me and encouraging me. Actually, most of them had kids a lot older than my kids. So most of the women there have been invested in CC for quite a while. And that was really great to have kind of not older, I'm not calling you old if you're watching this and you don't have older kids, but you know what I mean. Somebody who's further out who can kind of know where I've been, and also they're still trying to figure things out too, very humble, but at the same time have kind of a lot of wisdom that I can glean from, and just really cool, down-to-earth women who we're all kind of in the same boat, raising our kids the best that we can with the Lord's guidance. I developed some really great friendships that I plan on, again, myself cultivating during the spring and summer as well outside of CC. I just love being a community and not being a loner. Being a stay-at-home mom sometimes can feel like you're alone, and so it's just nice to know that you're not alone, and every Monday I would have at least some time with my friends. Okay, another fun thing that I took away from CC was a little bit more knowledge of the timeline. Timeline meaning all the way from creation to current day. There's a whole song, the timeline song. I can leave a link to that song also below. It was something that I was memorizing with my kids, and then also I was able to, when I tutored, I had to learn it really well. So it kind of made me learn. But the way that the timeline was in song format, I was able to remember things. So if I would hear in a sermon, somebody talked about Constantine, and I was like, oh, he legalized Christianity, and I didn't know that because I didn't like history in my earlier years, but now because of that song, you hear Constantine legalizes Christianity, that's part of the timeline song, and certain things I'm already realizing in my first year in CC that I'm taking away, and it's helping my confidence, and just kind of fun. I enjoy that part. I mentioned this a lot of times, but another favorite part about me was seeing my daughter excel and do really great in this setting. So, it may be different for every person who is joining a community. Your community could look different than mine. Your classroom setting, the tutor, everything is a little bit, you never really know what you're going to get, and you don't know how your child is going to respond in this setting. But for me personally, I was really glad to see that it wasn't something that she was dreading, something that she was looking forward to. It was really early in the morning, but that was more on me than it was for her. And yeah, I just really enjoyed that she enjoyed it. When you see how your child come alive in different ways than what you see them at home, it's just kind of a neat thing. So you probably could get that at other communities, other type of homeschool groups, but I'm really glad that the one that I chose to try out for the first year, she really enjoyed too. Okay, so now some of the things that I wish I would have known going into CC, and also some of the cons that I could see maybe when I tell my friends, the pros and cons. These are the things that I list. So first I tell them, and I've already mentioned before, that this isn't free. It's not a free group. There are other free groups that our community offers for homeschooling. And you can also just meet up with moms at the park, a lot of different Facebook groups, a lot of things, but this is not free. So if, you can't invest in that, then I totally understand. And, it's just, that could be a con to people, especially if you have a large family. It might get pricey. Though the way I do look at it is that we would put our kids into private school if we weren't homeschooling, just the choice that we would make, the things that we've talked about before. If for some reason something happened to me or whatever and we need to put our kids in school, we would choose private school, and private school is very expensive. So we kind of just look at the cost of CC and realize it's not as expensive as private school. And anyways, just that could be a con, but I'm okay with paying that price because I know what it goes to. And then another thing is, it's kind of baptism by fire, if you've heard of that term before, where you just kind of throw yourself into this and you're not quite sure what is going to happen. and especially if you don't go to a community day before you join. So there were a lot of families throughout our school year that would actually sit in on a class and check out what's going on, like for the whole day. The whole day is like 3 hours, by the way, for my part, the foundations part. So I didn't do that, and I wish I would have, because that way you at least kind of have an understanding. You really do get a good understanding of sitting in for 3 hours. If you can bring, if you want to go by yourself, if you want to take your child who's thinking about joining, just highly recommend sitting in on this so you can kind of understand the format and just what's kind of expected and things like that. But I think that's kind of the same thing with like every school. If you go to like bring your kid to a regular public school, charter school, private school, you don't know exactly what they're going to get every day and what they're going to do and what's expected of them. And I think it's just for anything new, it's at least for me, trying something new is a little bit scary for the first time. So going to community day before you join, or even after you join but you just want to go to a community day, I would highly recommend doing that. And the final con for me, because I'm not a morning person, was that it starts at 9. Ours started at 9 o'clock. I think the director decides when it starts, but there's a reason it starts at 9 o'clock, is because there are different levels of CC. There are the young kids, the middle schoolers, and then the high schoolers. And so the high schoolers are there like for a lot longer than the foundations, and so it's understandable why we start so early, but it still is quite early, especially if you live farther away, and in the winter time when in Michigan when it's snowing, and you just have to. I just knew that we put our kids to bed early on Sunday nights so we could wake up early. Yeah, it's okay though. So it just was a little bit of a con for me, as far as like, okay, it's not only every week that this is expected of me, but it's every week at 9 a.m. And yeah, oh well. Like I said, the pros totally outweigh the cons. So yeah, that is my experience with our first year of Classical Conversations. So I hope that you enjoyed my experience, or listening to my experience with Classical Conversations. Maybe it gave you a little bit better understanding about, and not from I'm not like a diehard CC fan, you know what I mean? Like, I'm still like, I like it. I'm not saying I'm going to invest our whole life into it yet. We're taking it 1 year at a time. I know that the most you can get out of it is in the high school years. I actually was part of a debate. I was a judge for the challenge group, which is the high school year, and their debates, and how they're able to take this information that they've been learning all these years with CC and developed confidence in a debate. Really cool to see that. So I know sticking it through is a really good path. But I'm not going to, and my husband, we're not holding that expectation over our family to say we're for sure sticking it out no matter what. So I know there's a lot of people who are really passionate about certain things and certain curriculums or certain ways of doing things, but for me personally, I'm still just walking this out year by year, sometimes week by week and day by day. So that's just my experience though of a whole year at CC. And I'm really glad that we joined. I'm really glad that I tried it out, and I am definitely planning on joining this coming year. So even when I have a newborn, we still plan on joining this coming year. So yes, I hope that this was helpful to you. If you have any other questions, definitely leave them below and I will try to answer them. I have a cold, so my head's not completely clear. Maybe I didn't quite explain things. So definitely leave a comment below if there's any questions. I'd love to hear from you and be part of this community here on Prayers and Ponytails. So hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.